The answer is that there is no shortcut to you showing up every day with valuable content to your audience. The essence of these hacks is trying to give you a shortcut around something that is crucial. First step being on social. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vistasocial podcast, a show where we go behind the scenes on how we're building an awesome tool for social media marketers. I'm Reggie, one of your hosts, and today Vitaly and I are going to explore hacks. Well, I mean, really just the fact that there are no hacks when it comes to social media management. And I think it's kind of funny, Vitaly, because I mean, product development, like you've been in this space for a while. So when we say hacking, you know, there's the code and we always picture the person on the computer typing a bunch of code and all of a sudden they've got $1 million in the bank account. This is a different type of hack. What are we talking about?
So I think there is this thought process that sort of goes along these lines, is that there is a way to figure out an algorithm or to figure out a sort of the way the networks work and to find a way to sort of hack that process to your own benefit. And to some extent, I'm old enough to kind of come from the marketing world that was very sort of SEO heavy, and everybody pursued SEO and everybody kind of implemented strategies to have the websites sort of ranked higher. And I feel like that world was always really all about knowing how to hack or how to predict Google's algorithm, right? So if we only have enough keyword density on the website, if we only link our pages in a certain way, or if we only had a certain backlink, then we can hack it, and tomorrow, right, our site will just be ranked. And I think to some extent, it still sort of operates the same way, that world of SEO, where there is still an attempt to hack or to kind of influence the sort of the algorithm in your favor and get ranked. I think social media is more difficult from that standpoint, because it's not at all around, you know, how many times you've mentioned a certain keyword. It's really about the quality of the content. So influence is really granted to those who produce content that's perceived by many as the best.
Yeah. And
it doesn't, in the end, have much bearing how often, how many followers you'll gain, how quickly, or what hashtags you'll just, you know, there's not a hashtag that's going to sort of make your content all of a sudden stand out that much, right? And I think it's difficult for some to accept this notion that there is no hack, because people are naturally looking for, maybe they don't even view it as a hack per se, but they kind of view it as, hey, if I can only sort of figure out the process that sort of helps my cause. And I think that's where they begin Googling and they begin seeing sort of recommendations. And some we even talked about, like shadow banning, or, you know, how to avoid it. And, you know, you have these people who I feel like made careers around suggesting things. And this is sort of the subject of our conversation today, is to try to maybe dispel some of these myths and some of these hacks for what they are, as somewhat ineffective in the grander scheme of things approaches.
Yeah, these shortcuts, these hacks, they promise the world, but when you get down to it, there's very little result, if any, that could be really coming out of this. And I think a lot of these that we're going to talk about, they're completely opposite to the nature of social media, what it's for, what the algorithms do, like you said, to promote content that's truly great in the eyes of the audience. So one that comes up a lot, let's talk about this one, but artificially inflating my audience count, buying followers, buying likes on my post. What good does that do for somebody? I mean,
yeah, so I think there is buying, but then there's also what I think some perceive as, this is just the smartest thing ever, is I'm going to follow a bunch of people, right? And they're going to follow me back out of curiosity, perhaps. And then I'm going to sneakily unfollow them. And as a result, this is how I'm going to grow my followers. And I think I've been in this long enough to remember this coming up. And I think some people refer to it as like follower harvesting or something like that. And it pains me to continue to see these questions being asked by users. And I'm just so, I mean, I feel so bad for the user who is asking the question, because I feel the level of misguidance, right, that that person has, is that it's the fact that you will have more followers would not change anything about your content, the quality of it, and the way you are being perceived. And again, I want to contrast that with the SEO world, where if you could only have enough keyword density, and if only Google ranks you higher, then people will just see you. Here, as we speak about in our podcast, Instagram ranks things based on how often your content was shared in DMs, how likely people are to recommend it to one another, right? So by harvesting completely random followers who have no idea what your content is, it's it sort of, it goes just against even the whole spirit of social media and the purpose of it.
It does. If the end of the day, if you're on social for a business purpose, and it could be a creator whose business purpose is to grow their audience, to somehow monetize that, right, through sponsorships, whatever that might be, then at the end of the day, all of these hacks that we're talking about, they do nothing to increase the likelihood of you making that sale, of getting that customer, of getting an engaged audience member who's going to become part of your fandom or whatever that might be. But you're right. The auto follow, auto unfollow. I've seen things like.
But also, I think like something that you're talking about now is, let's say, sales, right? To some extent, I even find fallacy in that, like in the sense that if you are on social, right, you are not selling, right? Selling is what happens once your content, or once your material, whatever that is, videos, images, once that gets into people's minds because it's interesting, and then maybe once that influence is in place, you can try to monetize that.
Right.
But it's carriage before the horse, right? So you want to first achieve the audience and gain their trust, to then subsequently try to sell them. So I think people kind of like overlook this necessary first step of building an audience, something that does not exist in the world of SEO. Because in the world of SEO, it's a one-time interaction. I search for the best shoes to run in, and whatever Google decides is what I'm gonna basically find. I'm not searching for this every day. This is like a very transactional. It's a one-time thing, right? So with social media, influence is continuous influence, right? So you have a relationship with that follower. It's not like he's follower today and not follower tomorrow, right? So he's follower, he sees you, he sees your messages. If you cannot get their attention, you can't influence them to buy anything, because it's like asking people to sort of make a serious decision before having any sort of trust with the brand or any sort of relationship with the brand. So I think for the brand to be wanting to sell, they'll have to first understand what makes them a brand of interest, what makes them stand out, right? In a sea of content that's flowing out there. No easy answers to this question, by the way, but still, that's
there's no shortcut. I think that's the answer. The answer is that there is no shortcut to you showing up every day with valuable content to your audience, in order to build that audience, to then eventually be able to convert that through providing value to them in a sense of a product or a service or whatever that might be. But yeah, absolutely, the essence of these hacks is trying to give you a shortcut around something that is crucial first step to being on social.
But also it creates this false sense of progress, right? So for example, auto liking comments, right? All right, so you get a comment and you liked it. The interaction with the comment is intended to, just think of what the comment is. Comment is, all of a sudden you've achieved your goal. You posted a piece of content and somebody actually took time to react to it. So this is probably the most important part of building that relationship that you're looking to build. And yes, it's very time consuming. It's perhaps one relationship at a time, and maybe one day it snowballs and you don't maybe need to deal with each one of them, but you have that golden opportunity to build a relationship with a person by responding to them or by engaging, and instead you drop an automatic like, and almost not even regarding that as as an important event like in your social media space.
Yeah, we spoke with John Steven recently, and some of the work that he did on some Prime video shows around community engagement specifically. And when I look back to those stories that he shared, and by the way, if you're listening or watching, definitely recommend checking out that episode. Amazing conversation around just the power that community management can have around building an audience and getting them excited around your brand. But thinking back to his stories, like when he engaged with an audience member who wanted more of a specific character from the show in the post, right? And all of a sudden, every week they were just introducing that character more into the image. Mm-hmm. People were waiting for that comment so they could see it. That wouldn't have happened if there was an auto like platform in the background, just hitting like on every single follower's comment on mm-hmm. that post. Like you're not building valuable community. You're not engaging.
But what do you do, I suppose, in the case when I think a lot of people kind of ending up pursuing these hacks, right? Not so much because they are looking for a shortcut necessarily, but because they lack resources or they lack, the budget or the time to pursue sort of social media for the businesses in the way perhaps that's some bigger brands can, right? Mm. So what do you recommend? What do we recommend, right, for them to do? Do they just not do social? What are the more reasonable approaches perhaps to dealing with this issue?
Well, I guess to start, I mean, if we go extreme, whether the choice is either I'm not going to be on social or I'm going to be on social and use an auto like, I'm going to buy followers, like the result will be the same.
I agree.
Right? Yeah. But if we're going to take a less dramatic approach there are some small things that a brand could probably do to start, right? So I think one thing that I hear a lot in my conversations as we're onboarding in customer service with Vista Social, new agencies and marketers is they didn't all start on 6 different social networks, 8 different social networks. Mm-hmm. It's really doing a little bit of research before you get started and figure out where is my target client most active? Mm-hmm. Where do they hang out? And let's go hang out there. And building a strategy around that first, let's build some valuable content there first. You start seeing results, this and that, right? You've got some more bandwidth to expand. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the not trying to do too much would be a good advice. And I think focusing on really the essence, right, of whatever your purpose is. And we speak mostly to sort of businesses here, and not necessarily shying away from that. Sort of sometimes maybe brands and maybe more so even people just naturally, they sort of undervalue or sort of don't respect enough who they are and what their business is, sort of thinking that in order for them to succeed somehow they need to be kind of looking better or looking bigger or having a bigger office or having a better storefront or wearing a better suit or something. And they're really underappreciating the fact that that's, again, not what social media is all about, right? So social media is all about world as it is. And if you look at, some of the more influential people out there, they're not every time anyways, right? To kind of showcase their expensive cars and, shiny objects. But a lot of them are very simple people living, very simple lives. And the reason why they're influential, why their content is liked is for that sort of honesty, and you might be surprised how many people care about that sort of restaurant in the middle of, Arkansas that sells an amazing barbecue. And yes, it's not the prettiest maybe of locations, but it's authentic. It's, it has history. It has an amazing menu. Like there are so many things that could be sort of presented. And I think maybe people sort of don't necessarily appreciate this notion that what you have is already interesting. And there's no maybe need oftentimes to get a better cinematic experience for your video. Just record what you see and explain the day to day. And that's, believe it or not, but that's what we've kind of moved into, perhaps more so in the last few years with the proliferation of short videos. people want to follow lives and life cycles of businesses. They want to see this stuff.
Less polished, more authentic.
How do you open the store today? And what happened? When the delivery came, and what did the first customer say? And you know what I mean? Like, so all these things, they're interesting.
Yeah, I got a couple of gears turning, because I mean, it comes down to what we said before. It's about the content, right? So everything else will come, but the first step is creating content. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, the cinematic camera, the $5,000 budget to produce high quality stuff. Grab your phone. Our phones have better quality stuff nowadays than professional cameras had almost a decade ago, right? Record some stuff and then evaluate, right? Sit down, and every couple of months, what are the posts that perform really well? What are some of the things that we did there that we might want to revisit or do differently in an upcoming post?
I also want to briefly kind of talk about, because as a product, right, Vistasocial, we offer tools for marketers. And quite often, as I said, when I hear people ask for these auto follows or auto like features, and I think our support team is doing an amazing job to kind of not only say that we don't have it, but to sort of try to explain why and why is it not a good idea, and kind of steer people into the right direction. I think what makes it difficult is the presence of tools that do attempt to do it. So I just wanted to kind of maybe give a couple of sort of points on that, right? First of all, most networks, if not all of them, I should probably say all of them, specifically prohibit such behavior, meaning that if you're using a tool that offers that type of functionality, it's not a legit tool. It's not a tool that's been authorized by that network to do the work. And there is a very easy way to spot these tools. A tool that asks you for your password to your social profile is the tool that you don't want to use. Any social media management tool out there that is legit will never ask you for your login, ever, because there are other more secure ways of gaining access to your profiles for legitimate purposes. So a tool that asks you for your password, without a doubt, 99.9% is going to offer you features that are not legit. And you may say, sort of, it's okay. Let's say you trust the tool, you don't mind the risk, but then you get into these now you are a user who's performing these actions, because when they're going to perform these actions, they're going to perform them as you. And now you're running into all sorts of other dangers of the shadow banning, where you are, whether you believe the shadow banning or not, it's the sort of the situation in which your content, you are essentially second-class citizen on the network all of a sudden because you are doing something that the network does not like. It could be as innocuous as that, but it could be as severe as actually getting flagged and banned.
Right.
I cannot tell you how many times I've seen support these desperate cries of people that are like, my profile, my life work is dead, and it's been banned by a network, and there's just no way of getting it back. And and it pains me to see it happen. So that's, as a product person, that makes me just sad to kind of, first of all, it's also somewhat frustrating to kind of see people, but how come this ABC tool is kind of doing this, right? And I try to explain, like we try to explain, that there is the two worlds, right? There is a world of kind of like this gray area of tools that just operate outside of what's allowed, and there is us that sort of that play by the book. And by the way, playing by the book, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's just just execute better strategies.
Exactly. And when we talk about those tools too, Meta, these different networks, they try, and it's hard, right? But I've seen lots of times in the past where you see mass cease and desist letters being sent to tools getting shut down, accounts using those tools getting shut down. Like it happens. I remember when Threads was releasing earlier this year, there were lots of workaround apps that figured ways to hack through and get your Threads username and password to post to Threads before that integration was even available to anybody. And almost within the first couple of weeks, we started seeing court cases of Meta taking these apps down.
Somehow though, I think that situation to me is a little different. I think it's in one thing that there's a tool out there that sort of executes knowingly bad sort of ideas, like auto follows, auto likes, and whatnot. That to me is like very almost criminal, right? To kind of be out there doing this stuff. At the same time, there is this other dimension where there is a network out there that has a certain feature natively. For those of us who are old enough to remember when story publishing was not available through third-party tools, yet it was available for years or for some time on Instagram. And a lot of social media managers, they wanted Instagram scheduling, and some tools have figured out how to hack Instagram to publish stories to them. I'm not sort of at all endorsing that type of behavior, and and as a platform, we cannot afford to kind of engage in that. But certainly, that creates sort of an opportunity for people to offer that service. Again, I'm not endorsing that at all, but I think that that's at least kind of all right. So yeah, so there is a tool that's not overly legit, but it simply tries to kind of close the gap on something that marketers actually need. Use it obviously with great risk because you are sharing passwords. But at least to me, that's like a little almost it has a bit of an explanation.
Yeah,
so
it's not the hack and the shortcut to try to get you results that aren't realistic,
right?
To not doing the work.
Correct.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, that's fair. And so if you're listening, very important what Vitaly said, if you're using a tool that promises and delivers on the promise of automating likes and unlikes, follows and unfollows, builds massive followings within a few days, all these crazy things that are just not possible within Instagram, and they're asking for your password, because really that's the only way they're going to be able to do it, we highly recommend you revoke access, change your password, whatever it is that you need to do, because the account ultimately is at risk. And like we've been saying, the results are just not going to be there. It's not worth it. Do the work. You'll see the results in that manner. Any other tips, I guess, for the marketers who might be listening, or those who are maybe a little bit inexperienced or just coming into the social media management world and maybe aren't quite sure about what's available, what's not available, the nature of social?
Yeah, I think the hacks is really just a misguided way of looking at what it requires to be successful on social media. Focus on brands that are successful. Maybe look at some of the peer brands, of your size. Try to understand their strategy. Try to, again, like you said, try to limit your exposure on social. Don't have to be on X. Let's say if you are in restaurant, maybe as a restaurant you want to be on Instagram, and that may be it. If you feel like you got some extra videos to share, consider YouTube, consider TikTok, but just sort of use reason, focus on quality of content, be careful with your passwords. And it's not really about the followers as much as it is about engagement. Even if you have 1,000 followers, and you can see that about many brands, right? They would have tens of thousands of followers, but then you look at their content and they're getting just maybe a handful of likes, if any, that brand is not doing well, right? There's no value to you as a brand to have 100,000 followers that don't engage, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're real, even if you didn't hack, but if your followers aren't doing anything, there's no value in that. But the engagement is something that comes from both great content, but also from you. Were you able to, sort of reach out and touch that person's sort of feelings and build that relationship? So if somebody out there is selling you a service in particular, I think the smaller businesses are probably more vulnerable to those kind of pitches. Hey, for $50, we'll take care of your social. It's not. I mean, $50 is not a huge amount of money to lose, but it's not even me worrying about you losing $50. But it's waste of time. Like, it's waste of time and energy and hope, right? Nothing's gonna happen. So just be careful and be mindful of, if you want to do social media, just do social media. It's just and then you want to use a tool to do it. Totally recommend it, because using social media just with yourself is fine. If it's just you, you can use it natively. But as soon as you get into the team of people or get more people involved, you'll need a tool as well for that.
All right. Well, thanks, Vitaly. And talking about hacking is always exciting, especially with an engineer, developer in the room. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode. Again, if you have ideas, if you want to join Vitaly and I here in the studio, talk about an experience that you've had on social, make sure you head over to vistasocial.com/podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.